wasn't banned this time around, and I missed what Even in Death banned. Battlefield of Eternity has been Even in Death banned for all of Part 1, so we have no drafting data on what Even in Death like to play here. So clearly they at least did some work into making sure that they were comfortable and confident on this battleground, knowing that it could have, it probably was likely going to be a pick from Gale Force.
Alrighty then. So, are we 100% confident Even in Death is going to triple cheese this? Like, is every game strategy? I know that they go, like, the idea of catching them off guard, but I can't tell how far it's going to go. Because now I'm going,
so.
What about this game? What else are we going to see? Like, what does Battlefield of Eternity promote in terms of the wild strategies that other maps don't?
The hunt is on. No, that's Lunara. Tyrande.
Tyrande is one.
It's the second time I've done that today.
Another one would be a little bit of Malthael, but that's not that wild. I feel like I'm missing something here. You're right. Good old Artanis.
Artie.
Good old Artie.
That's what I call him.
You call him Artie?
we go back.
You and Artie are tight.
Yeah, man.
Who are you closer with, Gary or Artie?
Oh, Artie.
Artie?
Yeah, Gary's just he's kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
he doesn't seem to have a good idea of personal space.
Yeah. And the fact that he kind of just sometimes stands there staring off into space when you're like, hey, Gary, why don't you
Yeah, you ask him a
hang
question,
out
you're
with
just like, dude, like, I'm just
Are
trying to have a
there?
conversation. Like, hello? What's going on?
The old dead eyes.
First pick. Garrosh, even more so for Even in Death.
Garrosh banned by Gale Force versus them last game.
You know, I can't tell if I'm really excited or really scared for that pick because it's, yes, Roll20's put on a good showing, but it's like, is that just how Roll20 plays with it? Right now that we're going to see another version, he's flat struggled out of all the European teams. The only one who's made him look that good is Roll20. So suddenly to see it first picked and then banned in the first, it's pretty apparent North America's respecting it.
There's one other team who loves him and is doing pretty well with him.
Who am I missing here?
L5.
Oh, I actually haven't been paying attention to the drafts yet.
Eastern Clash champions, and they comboed him with Stukov too.
Did they?
Yeah. Oh man.
Ariel Uther. So, we have one team still willing, out of all the 3 teams we had going to international, still willing to bust it out. And that right now is Gale Force.
Yes. I wrote this down.
Hit me with it.
I feel like of our 3 teams, they would be maybe the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Not maybe be hit so hard by the international event. And I take Team Freedom off because it was their first international event.
Yeah.
Tempo, I think they're going to be fine. I think maybe they were more, I think that was a Roll20 factor more than probably anything. Although they did not adapt to banning Garrosh. But Gale Force was already sort of running. They would sometimes run this Ariel Uther. Tempo occasionally would too, but I kind of thought that maybe Gale Force would already be the team that just seemed to be more adaptive and just pop back into being fine after the Western Clash.
From personalities and mentalities too,
yeah,
I would agree with you.
That's what I was saying.
Definitely kind of talking to them more behind the scenes and knowing the guys pretty well, I would agree with you. That they are, without a doubt, the one that I would project to be most likely to come back. Normally I'd say Tempo, but if it wasn't for, you know, having what, from their eyes, like such underwhelming consistently, right? Like, it felt like it's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, you know, and the secret of that, we know, is just a million underneath it.
Yeah, although it is, I mean, it's not the first time, too, so it is something that they're at least used to. And when I talked to Cattle, we did feel like their mentality had bounced back and they were perfectly fine. Although I guarantee you that 3-0 to Roll20 is gonna hurt.
Yeah, it is very much going to. Rhaegar is the hover, and it turns out it is the ban for Gale Force Esports. So support on support on support here so far for them when it comes to draft priority. On the other side, though, we do have a Malthael task together. Still an interesting duo whenever we see them in the same side. The awkwardness of kind of defining the roles of which they want. They don't necessarily directly cross-compare each other, but all the heroes you want tasks that are enabling somebody else with. Malthael kind of fills that role in terms of a draft for the long run. So we'll see if Even in Death goes any other direction.
They did take away Vala as a hyper carry. Vala not only is the hyper carry for Ariel Uther, but does a lot of good damage to the Immortal. Granted, generally don't see a Hungering Arrow build with a Monster Hunter, which is why she oftentimes is picked for Battlefield of Eternity when she has to be the battery for Ariel. But still, combos really well with both of those heroes, and when you look at a lot of teams, she is even still the favored battery for an Ariel Uther. So that leaves things like Lunara, maybe a Cassia.
You know, I would really like, I think, a Cassia and a Garrosh. Who else is like a
yes,
a never flip target?
And you know why? Oh man. Not only does she get a better giant killer at level 16 with percent base damage, 3%, as long as you have some sort of stuns, silences, or stun slows roots to hold them down and give you that. Her basic attacks at 20 ignore armor with Titan's Revenge.
Turns out that's pretty neat.
I know. I was like, yes, we got to see Cassia, but they went with Lunara.
I mean, she's not a target that I think of when they get flipped. I'm like, oh man, there's no chance. But she does have a really good chance to turn things and make it not as appealing like a Malthael would, right? So I suddenly kind of like that. Also, to note, with this draft specifically, the denying of the Malthael, even though the synergy with the Tanzadar may be a bit awkward, it's going to be really useful to be able to remove that opportunity. And a Cursed Bullet. That's a lot of percentile damage off the table. If you want to rip through Garrosh's health bar.
And Stukov again.
And Stukov.
How's Stukov? I'm excited to see that. First time. Final pick for Gale Force.
Seal it in. I mean, let's be real here. Gale Force's composition is considered Eastern Clash perfect. Other than maybe a slightly out of place Murden. Maybe is as far as you could go with an argument. And even then, you can build a pretty solid argument as to that is not out of place.
No, his lockdown is going to make Malthael's life a little more difficult. And even if he takes that poke damage from Malthael, once the Reaper's Mark goes away, he can back off, heal up, a second win, and get back in the fight.
It's going to be a tough one here for Even in Death. But they have a lot of cool tools. They have Stukov Garrosh, and so far Garrosh has looked polar, you know. We've learned that he can dominate, and so that makes me optimistic of this one, because other than Roll20's performance, I've always been like, you know, he's flipping some stuff, but it's not looking too hot. I'm ready for it here. In Stukov, specifically on BOE, that was the first map when I started playing Stukov. I was like, this is kind of gross. Specifically, as long as we see the Lurking Arm at 1 expansion, the increased range later on, I believe at the 13 talent tier, as long as we see those two, suddenly he can be a very big problem at max range with just forever. And just be like, hey, by the way, it's like a reverse Sergeant Hammer. It's just like awkward to be in this one area for long periods of time where she makes that whole territory just a bad time. A
lot of good immortal damage for Even in Death, but Gale Force has the perfect fighting composition. Let's see how it works out in game number 2 as we head into Battlefield of Eternity.
So we do see the Lurking Arm at level 1 here coming out from the Stukov, so we'll keep track if we see even more. Overall, the level 1 doesn't indicate any build, in my opinion, at all. I feel like that level 1 is powerful enough that you could just be like, I'm going to take it, and then we'll decide what build we want to move into the later stages. Other than that, everybody else, when it comes to talents, they're kicking it old school, running the norm.
Still thinking on Uther, Battered Assault over Immolation, but we do see that a fair amount. But yeah, the only person I've seen switch off of getting a Lurking Arm, the Growing Infestation at 1, is Buds. He likes his weighted Pushel build.
He's putting a pretty solid argument for it, too. It is weird. I'd have to go back and kind of dissect his impact directly. I did see moments where I was like, that was ridiculous, and other moments where I'm like, is this working out? Is this paying off? But I feel like that is Stukov almost always. Seriously, like his kit alone, ignoring all talents. Let's say there was only one build to go on him. I still feel you would still feel that way because of how his kit plays out.
Even June, though.
I was just going to say this. I absolutely adore. Going into the Hammer of Lightbringer at level 1 on a map like Battlefield of Eternity is such a good talent adjustment coming out from K1 Pro.
K1 Pro's playing the Uther.
Yeah, into the double support.
That is a change as Lunara goes down. But that is a change because generally in the past when Ariel and another support has been played, Akaface doesn't play the Ariel, it's K1 Pro. And Akaface only had 2 Ariel games throughout all of the first part of Phase 2. So changing things up here.
It is an interesting aspect because though I do consider Ariel the most crucial point in a double support, in theory, in a double support, you should have your primary support player always playing the secondary support. because those are always going to be the wild variable. Ariel is the staple, so you can rely on that. So that should be K1 Pro in theory, right? So to see this changeup, I mean, I have no direct feelings on whether or not it's good or bad in this case, but it is kind of interesting. They originally go with what exactly you'd expect, and now later they change, whereas normally you'd expect they started this way and then they'd recover.
I wonder if this means a... I was going to say I wonder if it means Divine Storm. K1 Pro is maybe the person most known for flanks. Toss Michael Udall. Gale Force Esports is going to show up, though, and with the double support, they're going to do a lot of damage here. Fan untouched as Stukov goes down for first blood for Gale Force Esports.
Homicidal not going to connect to Storm Bolt as Calf getting a big whiff on that one, but the response here is going to be Gale Force picking up a lot of damage. The flip on to King Caffeine. Dwarf Toss is going to use Storm Bolt response. Fan gets the damage, but his shield's being dropped. It's all about the Immortal race for Gale Force.
So yeah, I was wondering if maybe we would see a K1 Pro flanking with the Divine Storm, more of a battle Uther.
I mean,
I was going to say the Ariel build is also slightly different, not getting any of the Sacred Sweep talents at level 1, getting Searing Light, just for some extra damage that Ariel can deal. So we'll keep track of both of these and figure out, maybe try to figure out why the adjustment of those two supports.
Yeah, I was trying to think about it off the top of my head, and the first thing that I think of, like, why would I want K1 Pro to be the Uther above all else, is only if it would be overly offensive, like with that flank. But I don't feel like Uther has a big enough argument into, doing that. He's such a straightforward character in the end. But we do see him concentrating a bit more on offensive utility with the Pursuit of Justice at 4. I'm assuming he's going to go with, I believe it's 13 auto attack heal. Is that 13 or 16? Where your auto attack?
13.
Yeah, 13. I believe that's the talent we're going to see him pick up as well. Nice flip onto Udall.
You think that over well met?
I actually, you're right with the reset at 1. Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do think that into the composition we see on the other side, it's a surprising amount. It's an undervalued talent, and now that we already see a variable build, maybe we see that fluctuation. Battery under a lot of pressure, though. Flipped Udall away. He comes right back in with a Q.
Let's give a little bit of time for Battery to heal back up, though, from the healing pathogen of Hal. The fort destroyed off of the first Immortal, along with the Shaman push. Quite strong for Gale Force Esports.
Very well done. Walking away with that early game forward is going to be something that they are going to really be able to use, considering they have that Illidan on their side. That is always something you want to consider. With Illidan, Arthas, there's probably a few others, but anybody who has an Eternal Slow or just chase capabilities. Battery looking for the invade on this bottom camp. It's going to be a 3 versus 4. Gale Force has the disadvantage here, except for King Caffeine with that flank. Dwarf tossing right on in. Good pre-cleanse coming out from Hal, but I don't know if it's really even going to be a thing. I guess it's not even a pre-cleanse there. Excuse me, that was Battery using it himself.
Michael Udall just wreaking havoc in the back line while the rest deal with the Greymane. Stukov has gone down to Battery, buying as much time as he can, but eventually will be taken out. Armor can't keep him alive for forever when he's all by himself versus the two people of Gale Force Esports there. Gale Force will go right back, finish getting that camp as the Uther. Yeah, that's how I would feel too, K1.
Yep, that's how I feel.
When you have to Hammer of Justice a Khazra.
He's getting it. Hey! And you get the globe at the end of the day. Feels so good. Man, the only way that gets worse is that was a Zerg Rush. There's nothing that feels worse than that. And we have to consider the fact that he hasn't even gotten to the point where he can move in. It's like, to the Holy Fire, it's a struggle. Skullcracker picked up for Gale Force, though, on King Caffeine. There is no major pickup on the other side, other than one thing I haven't considered is that lurking arm, no matter what talent build or anything of Stukov. Skullcracker does build an argument into wanting to pick that up, never wasting a Storm Bolt to rid of a silence. Fan flipped over, no leap and strike on out this time. The sidewall killed, but he's unable to gallop his way on out.
Mike now starting to retreat. Homicidal's put the Reaper's mark on him. Hammer of Justice slows down Frozen X. Gale Force limit the casualties of this fight. A few more seconds until Lunar is back, even in death. Look to use that time by immediately getting onto the Immortal. However, the positioning of this is aggressive.
Hal threw down the lurking arm, not getting too much value out of it there. Drag attempt from Battery, unsuccessful. Frozen X goes in with Greymane, gets stunned out here from K1 Pro. A little bit of damage. Mikey Dahl now dancing on in. He's looking to make it happen. Homicidal trying to get the poke out, but he is just a mouth out. Dwarf toss, Storm Bolt. That's Stukov down.
Homicidal thrown out thanks to Battery and into the fray, but Battery still being slowed down on his retreat.
This is just, Gale Force Esports are just ripping through even in death. They have no way to be able to deal with this. And so, I mean, I have a lot to say on how the angles of playing this game are going to have to change for even in death, but at the end of the day, I just don't know if compositionally and the way that this is played out, they have the resources to be able to deal with it.
Now that's what this composition excels at, and even in death, of all people, should know that because they love running this kind of hyper carry with an Illidan. It is what they would get every chance they could get it at the beginning in part 1 of phase 2. And because of that, they are limited to trying to get in, trying to get an engage. Once they have heroic abilities, they'll have Tormented Souls, which will help a lot, and they'll get some more ability of being able to lock down with the taunt, the Warlord's Challenge. But up till that point, Gale Force are going to brawl and brawl and brawl, and this time it'll cause Battery to lose his life.
22 seconds that he's going to be off the table here, and Gale Force, as they are creeping up on the 10s, you can ensure that they are going to have a very healthy Immortal coming online over the next few. Stun coming out from Akaface, very well done. Silence is dropped to try and protect Frozen X. Disengage use, heal coming out from How. He does keep himself alive. It's just more about how this is damage control for even in death. Yes, they aren't dying, but they're also still losing on the other side of the map, as we see Mike Udall doing work down here onto the objective. Again, this is going to be the Dragonite, or not the Dragonite, the Immortal. You know, I haven't made that mistake. I've called them Punishers, but a Dragonite, that was a doozy. In the end here, it's going to be their Immortal.
Suppose that makes sense.
I mean, I respect your ability to try and make me not look like a dingus, but
job.
At the end of the day, let's be real here. That's a pretty
I've gotten a lot of experience in it, you know?
Yeah. It's not my fault they force you with me, you know? I'd be like, show the girl some mercy, and they're like, no. No. She did this to herself. I don't know what you did, but you made the wrong guy mad, that's for sure. You know what you don't want to make mad?
Gale Force Esports.
Yeah, and with this Immortal, honestly, Illidan should just hunt as soon as possible. If Tassadar shows them anywhere on the map, there it is. Let's go, boys! Time to party!
Flailing Swipe buys some time for the team to get back. Homicidal jumping on top of Michael Udall, but the Divine Shield lets him continue the brawl.
Oh, pretty Akaface. That was, honestly, it doesn't look like much, but that was debatably near a perfect Divine Shield.
Talk me through it, Dread.
It's like, because if you saw the damage output, if you go back frame for frame, like there was a lot of damage output coming out right then, immediately after dropping the heal at the exact same time, rebuttals the health right at the perfect balance that Illidan wants to be. Divine Shield stopping all the damage immediately as it's coming in. It's one of those cases where you're just like, that couldn't have gotten much better. Mike Udall now with that full HP, he's gonna dash on in. Curse Bolt hits, Fan goes over, Aegis is gonna stall.
Crystal Aegis, but Lunara still goes down. Homicidal at least secures that kill, but Michael Udall keeps going. The minions will be here in a second. Silence doing what they can. Homicidal gets on Michael Udall, and Frozen X is there right behind him.
The hunt goes back on to Battery. Akaface being flipped in. He goes down. 2 members of Gale Force still alive. K1 Pro, though, is mounted up. Calf looks like he's got one for himself. In the end, even in death, still struggling through this game, but that victory over that skirmish has at least restored some of the balance here on experience. The 13 talent here is going to be lost, but it's not enough considering the timing of the objective for them to really be concerned. This is even footing, not counting the structures.
It just goes to show why even in death still as a team needs to be respected. They've been working really hard on their macro game, but they have always been very capable team fighters. Homicidal has to be respected in his role as an Illidan, as a Malthael. He is an incredibly dominant player for even in death. And the rest work together. This is a team that has been playing together all year long. They didn't have any roster swaps. They came into HGC at the beginning of Phase 2 as a completely formed team of 5 that have been competing through the Open Division all of Phase 1. So they have that kind of good synergy that works really well in their team fights. And overextending just a little bit, getting just a little bit too hyped to try to get an early victory may just work to your demise. And
I would feel like another tool that if we are going to see them be more successful into this game is if you notice a lot of the team fights, Gale Force is honestly, Homicidal. Good thing not going to land that Storm Bolt. The hunt comes in, but I think it's going to be retreat. After the Storm Bolt didn't land, that was not the fight they wanted. Battery, he's mounted up. Nobody's getting the dismount. Finally, he's going to be attempted. That should have happened a little bit sooner because that was almost one dead fan. Keep in mind, though, this is one of the cases where the Lunara has Leaping Strike over Thornwood Vine, which has been rather common recently. Her play, her focus target capabilities, and being the one you want to pick on is a lot less likely whenever that Leaping Strike is there. And so much so, he's going to move into unfair advantage at that 13 talent tier, which is suddenly a huge power spike for them. How? Throwing down the Lurking Arm to zone off a little bit, but it's only the melees that get deterred with that positioning. Good force wall.
Still moving forward. Frozen X found
He's body
Ban, but there was the hunt.
Hunt goes down. Frozen X survives. The passive's already used for Stukov. Flip is going to be thrown out. Flailing Swipe trying to buy time. Divine Shield used to cancel the taunt, and now How is in a bad spot. Tormented Souls turned right on, and this looks like even Death's trying to turn things around, but they're torn. Mike Udall has got so much pressure onto the backline that everybody's like, do we go in? Do we go out? Doesn't really matter what you do at this point. Gale Force got the first kill, and they're going to back away to the objective.
It looked so good for Even in Death until two things happened. First, the Divine Shield was perfect to get Michael Udall out of the bad situation caused by the taunt of Warlord's challenge. Then after that, once Homicidal went in, there were so many people grouped on the point of where he was at with Tormented Souls, but because Mike was still doing damage, as you said, and then the sheer amount of stuns, the reduction of damage thanks to Well Met and the control that they had over Homicidal, they were able to get through Tormented Souls. And that gets even scarier at 16 once Gale Force Esports gets Benediction. There's a taunt again. Crystal Aegis this time is the way of making sure that Michael Udall stays safe. And again, Gale Force Esports keeps Illidan alive.
No Divine Shield available though, so Even in Death may have a window to try and capitalize, considering one of the heroics of the supports is down. Fan over the side, questioning when he wants to throw out that splintered spear damage. He's going to hold on to it for now, as Lutano had that reveal. Now, posturing on the side, K1 Pru goes through, throws out the Golden Frisbee. Not maybe the best opener on a dismount on Uther, but let's be real here. Hammer of Justice was pretty improbable.
The poke has been very good for Even in Death and not losing anybody. They're neck and neck with the Immortal of Gale Force.
They are. I just wonder if when you hear that little, I want to say it's a wisp of a noise, which is called the hunt. You know, if you aren't listening to the Hatred of 10,000 Years, whatever that little psst, it's coming in, is going to one-shot somebody, they need to be able to survive that. The biggest thing for me here is going to be How and the Lurking Arm. He's using the Lurking Arm as a way to deter all the other members of moving in, rather than finding a way to, or not even that, he's just waiting for the most optimal chokehold to try and use it. I want to see him use it more defensively on top of himself. K1 Pro is going to be flipped in. The hunt goes down, but Immortal actually gets the stun. K1 Pro drops the Divine Shield. There's a great flailing swipe, but at the end of the day, it is Even in Death who are down already one member. Mike Udall goes in. That battered assault value is going to be real through that choke. Leaping Strike flipping onto Battery. This is 3, going to be 4 once Mike Udall is done with Homicidal. Good shield use. So it looks like Lutano is now the focus. Mike can leap over this wall if he wants. Looks like he's going to play it safe.
Really well done of Gale Force to focus on How. As a Stukov, when you've been found out in your positioning the way that they were, being able to take him out, bringing him down, and then K1 Pro staying alive, running around, using the vision, making sure that he could get back and heal up, then come back into the fight once the one support was down. And that's the brilliance of the double support comp in a nutshell. Because you have the 2 support, if one is focused and they run away, even if they die, sometimes you're able to turn the fight just because, like that, if Uther had died, still had the ghost heals.
With 16 talent tier, a 50% shielded Immortal, and a Illidan double support composition, they do struggle with core considering double support, but they don't when considering the Illidan Divine Shield and an Uther coming online. This may be the moment where Gale Force Esports decides they are done with this second game. It's only going to take them probably 2 kills, depending on the time of the kills and how effective they are. They will have enough for lethal.
Reaper's Mark poking down. But until the shielding is gone, Homicidal can't step all the way forward. He's just going to continue to poke all of the members. Force Wall denies all of Gale Force from jumping in, but they have found somebody, and that somebody is Garrosh. Homicidal jumps back in on top, and along with the flailing swipe, pushes them away. But Homicidal still way far up in the front, is brought down right away from Gale Force Esports, and they are getting those kills that you said they needed to try to end the game right here.
Illidan surviving was the last thing that Even in Death wanted, because that is for sure going to be the reason this core ends up falling. Gale Force Esports in pretty dominant fashion here in Game 2. Took them 16.5 minutes, 14-5. But once we finish it up, this is Gale Force taking a pretty solid lead, 2-0 over Even in Death.
Even in Death had one really good fight up toward the top keep when Gale Force got just a little bit too aggressive, but Gale Force control over the Immortals, their ability to use the times where they were ahead and consistently brawl, even from the beginning, made it hard for Even in Death, and they fell behind right away.
So now the question is, does Gale Force Esports get the wild pick? The one where they get up 2-0, they bring out the wild, crazy one, and if so, what is that hero? My guess is Murky. What is yours?
Another Tronda.
Yeah, you're probably right. But we just got Battlefield out of the way, but they were willing to use it on Tomb, which is like one of the highest risk high reward. If you are going to run that strategy, I hope to see it on a map like Dragon, just with the new Dragon Knight.
You know, you say Murky, but I said Tronda, but that's not cool enough for me, so I'm retracting my